Consent. Consent. I am consenting. See, consent is a living, breathing, Sherelle, don't forget to breathe. A living, breathing word that ignites my physical, mental, spiritual notions that it's time to engage now, 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 now. I'm ready. Hi, my name is Sherelle Hessell-Gordon, and I am the Executive Director of the DC Rape Crisis Center. We are the oldest rape crisis center in the country, and me and my comrades and volunteers provide support for sexual assault survivors in this city. We largely do that through 24-hour hotline, training and technical assistance, therapeutic counseling, education trainings, building capacity for other organization, policy initiatives, legislative efforts. I mean, we are nonstop trying to grasp this issue. And I've been doing this work for 20 years. And most of the time when I say that, people say, I must have been a baby when I started. But no, it's just, I can blame that on good genes. But I've been doing it for a long time. And I've really been trying to wrap my head around this issue, right? So I first started with power and control, right? We largely know that rape is all about power and control. It's not about the physical manifestation of any of the process. And then I began to study and look at race and class and gender and sexual orientation and religion and how that impacts people, vulnerable communities, how assault permeates through all of our communities, right? Trying to figure out a strategy after 20 years to change the numbers that say 1 in 4 women throughout their life will be sexually assaulted. That means that we're surrounded by survivors in the room. 1 in 6 men will be assaulted in their lifetime. That means that we are surrounded by survivors in this room. And so after 20 years, and this rape culture continues to push at me from every angle, trying to figure out a strategy so that I can work myself out of a job, right? Because 20 years is a long time. And there have been centuries and centuries of people that have used rape as a method of war, have used rape to control. And I'm just the little girl from Alabama trying to stop and figure it out. So I need your help, right? One of the strategies that I've long tried to use is conversation. So I'm asking today if you will grant me the opportunity to have a conversation with you, to consent to engage with you about one of the topics, which is consent. Is that cool? Yeah, okay, great, I need some feedback, great. So largely, how are we introduced to consent? Usually, it's through medical paperwork, legal paperwork. Someone presses us a paper and say, hey, la 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 la, and then you sign, right? And you sign because it's habitual, right? You've seen other people do it, you've been taught how to do it, and so you sign, right? And there's a nice, cheery advocate that explains it to you, and you sign. Usually you're interacting because you need something at the time, right? Whether it's healthcare or services, you're signing away. And there's terms and conditions on the form that largely you don't read, right? And then there's a time limit to it, and sometimes it's perpetual, and you really don't understand that unless you go to GW Law School, right? But you don't really look at the paperwork, you just sign. And so you give away your consent freely. We are conditioned to do that, right? Now, the other thing that I would like to inform this conversation is around the privilege of consent. The privilege says that I understand and have the right to say yes or no at any time. But largely, there are a number of communities, a number of people, even in this room, who don't have that privilege, who have not reconciled that they can even say yes or no. And let's paint that picture, right? I'm a queer woman, and I haven't come out yet. And I'm still wrestling with whether it's okay to say yes in this way. Or I'm a young person, and I'm not equipped. I don't have the tools or the language to say yes or no. And maybe I've had sex before, but I'm still not sure. Or maybe I'm a brother who's been in church from Monday to Monday, every day of my life. And so religion is pounding me at the door, telling me that sex is combated and put in this box. And largely, if it's not done in this way, then I can't have it, right? And so before we can even consider that I can say yes, there's a privilege behind being sure and reconciling that within ourselves, that we're sure to say yes or no. And so it starts to happen. Say we have decided that we want to engage, and we have a partner, and they're here, right? And the mood is right? You can smell whatever presents are in the air, right? Food, music, you know how we get the mood starting, right? And the train starts, right? There's this dance that happens, right? And we're moving, and all these things are reconciled within our body, right? We're not really understanding. We're not checking in, right? But it's moving. The train is moving, right? And it's moving, and then there's something inside us that says, I don't know, right? But the train's still moving, right? And you can't stop the train, right? Have you ever tried to stop the train? I mean, sometimes people say things fall off and, it hurts, or all these different other myths around stopping. And yet we don't provide the space for that to happen. And so maybe we got a nod in agreement, or if somebody was really aggressive. And so we continue. We continue when there's something inside us that's not sure, that didn't say yes. And so maybe right now, because the train is moving and we're having fun and the train is moving, there's dancing and music and it feels really great. And yes, and yes, and yes. And then no. Happens, right? Where's the space for that? How do we build skills and create a dialogue around introducing that space when that happens, when we're largely not sure of what's happening? How do we equip ourselves and our communities and young people to have the tools to provide the space to say yes or no? Because all we're thinking about is riding the train, y'all. Right? So one strategy, right, in changing cultures that we've largely done is to say, if there are 4 generations in the room, right? So that means my daughter is Sherelle, me, my mother, my grandmother. If we were in the room and we were able to educate and inform us all around healthy ways to be intimate, knowing skills and having a conversation around sex and what it really looks like. Maybe we can change a culture. We've seen how our culture has changed so quickly and over the past decade. But this rape culture, y'all, is kicking our butt. It just keeps coming. We see images, scenarios, all the while we are having conversations that are formed largely by myths. We're not having true conversation, and largely not around consent and even what it looks like. So I'm asking you to consider to start having these conversations. It's real. It can happen. You can still have the train and the ambiance, right? The music, the song, right? But what does it look like to make sure that you're sure that I'm sure, that we're sure, in a way that when it's all over, everybody is good. That's real good intimacy, right? And maybe then, in those conversations, you all can help me work out of my job. Because 20 more years of doing this, I'd rather be investing in the next world change, social change thing that's happening in this world. Please partner with me in this conversation. We'll be here until it's over. Thank you.